War and peace on the agenda as Presidents Trump and Putin meet face-to-face in Alaska.
We really made some great progress.
But in Ukraine, the path to peace is nowhere in sight as the fighting rages on.
From CBS News headquarters in New York, this is the CBS Evening News.
Good evening, I'm Maurice DuBois. President Trump has just wrapped up a joint appearance, as you saw, with Russian President Vladimir Putin. They met behind closed doors for nearly 3 hours today at a hastily arranged summit at Joint Base Elmendorf-Richardson in Anchorage, Alaska, with the goal of ending Putin's long and brutal war with Ukraine. John Dickerson is in Anchorage to lead our coverage. And John, they took no questions, did not share any details, and as we said, the war rages on.
As you say, Maurice, good evening. The two leaders say they had a productive meeting and made progress in their talks. President Putin said they reached an understanding. President Trump was quick to say there's no deal until there's a deal and said he would have discussions with Ukrainian President Vladimir Zelensky and America's NATO allies. They took no questions from the press. The summit began with a warm handshake. Mr. Trump and Putin clasped hands and smiled like old chums on the red carpet. There was a military flyover, which included several F-35s and a B-2 stealth bomber that was flown in from an Air Force base in Missouri. President Trump was joined at the talk by Secretary of State Marco Rubio and Special Envoy Steve Witkoff. Putin was joined by two of his top foreign policy advisors. We are now joined by Nancy Cordes at Joint Base Elmendorf-Richardson, the site of the summit.
John, before these talks even got underway, President Trump said there were two possible outcomes. One, that the meetings would go well and that he would appear at the podiums behind me with Vladimir Putin to do a joint news conference. Two, the meetings would go badly and he would do a press conference by himself and head home to Washington, D.C. In the end, neither of those came to pass. Instead, after just a few hours, President Trump and Vladimir Putin emerged from their meetings, took the stage behind me, spoke for a combined 12 minutes, made vague comments about the fact that they could work together well and that progress had been made, and then they left without taking questions. Take a listen to what they both had to say about how things went today.
I'm going to start making a few phone calls and tell them what happened. But we had an extremely productive meeting, and many points were agreed to. There are just a very few that are left. Some are not that significant. One is probably the most significant. But we have a very good chance of getting there. We didn't get there, but we have a very good chance of getting there.
And I agree with President Trump, as he has said today, that naturally the security of Ukraine should be ensured as well. Naturally, we are prepared to work on that. I would like to hope that the agreement that we've reached together will help us bring closer that goal and will pave the path towards peace in Ukraine. We expect that Kyiv and European capitals will perceive that constructively and that they won't throw a wrench in the works. They will not make any attempts to use some backroom dealings to conduct provocations to torpedo the nascent progress.
And so it is unclear why these meetings wrapped up early after these two leaders traveled all this way to Alaska. It is unclear how close, if at all, they got to a ceasefire, something that Putin has been resisting for years. And it is unclear where the two leaders go from here. Is there going to be another summit that includes Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky? These are questions that we are asking the White House. We haven't gotten any information yet, John.
What is clear is that it is unclear. Nancy Cordes traveling with the president. Thank you so much, Nancy. We're joined now by Face the Nation moderator and chief foreign affairs correspondent Margaret Brennan. Margaret, what did you make of that?
Well, you know, John, I was just looking at what the president said in an interview right before he began the talks, and he said, "I won't be happy unless I walk away with a ceasefire." I don't think he walked away with a ceasefire, none that he told the world about, certainly none that Vladimir Putin acknowledged. In fact, Vladimir Putin talked about renewing a business-like relationship, said, you know, they have a trustworthy relationship now. This seemed more about patching up frayed diplomatic ties between the two countries that just to remind everyone, had been frayed because Russia launched a full-scale invasion of Ukraine in 2022, which led the Biden administration to pile sanctions on Russia and really try to isolate it and punish them. President Trump has the opportunity to put more on him. That's what brought Putin to this negotiating table. We also didn't hear that he will face consequences for failing to agree. Do we get that in the coming hours? We're waiting. Right.
Other thing we were looking for was whether there would be, as the president promised beforehand, another quick follow-on meeting that would include Vladimir Zelensky. No talk of that.
No, and there were plans in place, already talk of locations. U.S. officials were chatting to me about that. Where would they go, and would it be here, or would it be in Europe? We don't know yet if it's worth it. Certainly, there was no mention of any of the things that had been articulated on those multiple conference calls with European leaders by the vice president in the last few days. Things like security guarantees for Ukraine. If they don't enter NATO, well, who in Europe? And does the U.S. participate in saying, well, we'll defend you, at least for the remaining part of your country that Russia hasn't already eaten up? We've been showing that map with the 20% of territory that Russian forces currently hold. There are small patches there Ukraine is still in. But U.S. intelligence assesses this war is turning in Russia's favor. And that is why the idea of buying time matters.